All right, good afternoon here in South Africa, Durban, and it's an absolute honor and a privilege, and I'm completely humbled to have a gentleman of this caliber, our next guest speaker, who is on the other side of the world now, sitting in Colorado, the United States of America, South African born, and it's just an amazing opportunity to speak to a man of his caliber who is going to share insight into leadership, share insights into his journey, particularly in soccer, and the success that he's had. So without further ado, I just want to welcome you and thank you, Alan, for giving up your time. I know that's one thing can't get back, and it's certainly, it's an absolute privilege to have you in this webinar, which is just really to inspire young leaders, to inspire the youth, to inspire coaches, and help each other grow from each other's wisdom. So, Alan, thank you so much for giving up the opportunity to be a part of this journey.
It's a pleasure, Gavin. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alan. So I'll just give a quick overview of Alan. I mean, he's got a huge CV and has had much success. So I hope I do justice to you. So Alan Koch was, as I said, South African born. He matriculated from Westville Boys High School in 1992. In that year, Alan was selected as captain of the South African school's soccer team for in that particular year. Alan had much success as a professional soccer player representing Reservoir Hills United in 1993, followed by playing for clubs in both Germany and Ireland. In 1995, Alan was selected for the South African under-23 soccer side. It was in 2003 that Alan moved across to professional soccer coaching with much success in both the United States and in Canada. Coaching many successful teams, just some to name a few. He's been coaching the Whitecaps, the FC Cincinnati side in the Major League Soccer, and currently is the Colorado Springs Switchbacks Football Club head coach. In 2018, Alan was named the USL Coach of the Year for the Cincinnati's record-breaking season. So as I mentioned before, a man of your caliber, I'm sure you have a lot of insights, so we really appreciate you giving up your time to do that. Alan, I'm going to go straight into the first question.
Okay.
You matriculated from Westville Boys High School in 1992. Since then, you've played professional soccer in South Africa and abroad. Now you have become a highly respected professional soccer coach. Can you give us some insights, particularly for anyone who's listening to this particular webinar, of your journey from high school and the success that you are enjoying today?
Yeah, of course, Kevin. Firstly, thanks for the intro. I appreciate it. It's been an amazing journey, to be honest, and it's had ups and downs like any journey. My accent has changed a little bit during the course. I'm still very, very proud of my South African roots, but I've lived, either played and coached the game in 6 countries, and graduating or matriculating in 1992, that's almost, 28 years ago. So I'm pretty old now, but no, I've enjoyed it. And I think growing up in South Africa gave me a very unique perspective. I appreciate the education I had. I'm a very, very proud old boy of Westville Boys High School. And the journey has taken me everywhere. And I think by having an open mind and an open heart, it's allowed me to have the journey that I've had. And I still go into it with an open mind and an open heart, willing to learn in every situation, every positive experience, but also every adverse challenge that you go through. And if you have that mentality, I think it allows you to grow. I had somebody tell me a long, long time ago that when you lose a game, you can learn from that experience. And I agree with them 100%. But you don't have to lose to learn. You can also learn when you win too at the same time. And I feel fortunate in my coaching career that I've won a lot, thank goodness. And I've won in the majority of the places that I've been. And I've learned from those experiences, but I've also learned by losing at the same time. Sometimes you have to fail. And that's a part of growth opportunities. And I feel fortunate that I've actually failed a couple times and had time to reflect and learn from those experiences.
Great. Thanks, Alan. And I think I love the fact that you bring up failure, because often when we deal with high school, particularly high school boys, so that's sometimes something that they're hard away from. So to hear from your experiences that failure is a big thing. And also it's a nice perspective to hear that you can learn from winning, which is brilliant. So Alan, from coaching in a professional environment, and obviously sport's a massive thing in South Africa, as you know, there's no doubt that comes with many challenges and pressures. How do you overcome these challenges, and how has it helped you grow into the leader that you are today?
Yeah, that's a tough question, but it's a great question. Um, you know what? I'm gonna shoot from the hip. The biggest challenge, but I'll also say biggest failure in my coaching career, and I've coached now for 2 decades. You go into this profession and you are hired to be fired, and it's one of those unique professions where you sometimes are in a position where you are going to be the scapegoat. And I was fortunate to go through a lot of success. I started here coaching North America in the university game. It's a professional career to be coaching these very, very professional environments. And then I left to go into professional football, which is a whole different business, and had a lot of success and lifted trophies and enjoyed it. But then I got fired at Cincinnati in Major League Soccer. And I almost wish I'd been fired earlier in my career, because it gave me the opportunity. I was out of a job, and I had to reflect on what worked within my system of play. So that's a very tactical component on the field, but also my philosophical approach to coaching and managing people. And I was only out for 5 months. Thank goodness. I had a lot of opportunities and things that I explored. Some actually were back in South Africa, to be brutally honest, and explored all of them with an open mind and an open heart, like I said, but really grew and learned from getting dismissed. And why did it happen? And what could I have done to prevent it? And sometimes you control certain things, and some things are completely outside of your control. And you can't really worry about the things that are outside of your control. Focus on what you can control, particularly in this business where you're under the microscope all the time. And it's not just in the stadiums. I've coached games in front of 70,000 fans. People are staring at you and seeing, what are you going to do? I remember a game against Atlanta in Major League Soccer. We were down a goal. And people, people are waiting to see, what are you going to do as the coach? What are you going to do to adjust things to get yourself back into the game? And those are the enjoyable moments. I love those moments. I love embracing those. Those are the ones you have to step up to the plate. And sometimes you make adjustments that work, and sometimes you don't. But that's the beauty of this profession, because you're under that microscope. People are watching you with everything that you do in the stadium. But then you've also got to take a step back, and how do you prepare yourself and prepare your team for those moments? And I think the preparation is something you can see behind me. This is completely raw and exposed. It's brainstorming. It's how do you prepare your team to be ready for battle? And you live and you learn from those experiences.
Great. If I can just elaborate on what you said there, I mean, I think this is something from a young coach, Tiffany, and from my coaching perspective. How do you get the controllables and the non-controllables? How do you mentally, as a coach, under that pressure, don't allow the non-controllables affect you? How do you balance that and not let it affect you from a motivation point of view, from a stress point of view, in this big environment that you're involved in?
I've always said this, and I sincerely mean it. You cannot control certain things. And the beauty of my career is I've coached under the entire umbrella of professional football, collegiate football here in North America, amateur football. I even coached, to be brutally honest, my first little taste of coaching was in 1993. And matriculated from Westville in 92. I signed for Reservoir Hills, which was in the OK League at the time, which was the South African First Division in those days. I know the names have all changed a lot. And I tore my ACL. So I actually came and I coached the Westville boys team the very next year, a year after finishing high school. And we probably played in front of very few fans then. And I've coached in environments where we've had 100, 200 fans. And like I said earlier, I've coached in front of thousands of fans. But I don't allow the audience to dictate how I approach a game. Quite frankly, I might be very unique. I actually don't care if I coach a game in front of 100 people or if it's 100,000 people. It doesn't make any difference as to how I approach the game. So that allows me to completely focus on what I can control. The non-controllables, like you mentioned, those are outside of my control. Why would I even waste a single second of worrying about those things. And I've had beautiful moments. I've had entire stadiums yelling and chanting my name. I've had people yelling and telling me to FO multiple times. I remember one situation actually playing in Ireland. I was told to FO back to South Africa. But those are moments that you can look back and you can reflect and you can actually appreciate them, because it means people care about what you're actually doing. But I don't control those, so I don't even bother worrying about them for 1 second. I know it sounds easier to say that than to actually do it, but if you can actually just focus on completely what you can control, don't worry about what anybody thinks, what everybody's saying. That allows you to do your job to the best of your abilities.
Thanks, Alan. I really appreciate you giving that. Because I think a lot of the time as a young coach, when you get involved, you let the non-controllables maybe overwhelm you and you forget about the big picture. So to hear it from you, yeah, it's thank you very much. I really appreciate that answer. Alan, obviously, we know in this world's been sort of turned upside down with this whole COVID-19 and it's affected everybody, particularly sports. You know, how has this worldwide pandemic affected your training schedule currently with the team that you coach in Colorado? And how has it affected your planning for the season? And what methods have you and your staff implemented to ensure your team is ready for the start of play whenever that is?
You know what? It's such a difficult moment for everybody. And I'm still in touch with people in South Africa, and I'm in touch with people around the world. And I think we're all going through this together. It's very, very different and difficult. And to be quite frank, I find it weird. It's a very weird time that we're all going through. But what a growth opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to really think outside of the box as to how we go about doing our business. And just the fact that we're communicating here on a Zoom call. I'd never had a Zoom call before this pandemic. Now it feels like I'm having Zoom calls every single day, which is awesome. We've allowed a difficult situation to have positive spin-offs. And I think the positive spin-offs personally are just reconnecting with people around the world, but then professionally having to really think outside of the box. I have the whiteboard behind me. There's literally 5 whiteboards around our place here in Colorado, which I appreciate my wife's understanding. I'm a bit of a visual person, so I draw and I write things up all over the place. And I normally do that in my office. Well, my home had to become my office during this pandemic. So I haven't allowed that to stop me. I've just had to be creative. But my staff have been fantastic. We've literally continued to work every single day. On March 12th is when we shut it down. We actually went to our stadium. We were preparing for a game. That was a Thursday, preparing for a game on the Saturday. We were going to play San Antonio, and we got shut down that morning. So we gave the team until the Monday off, just really to recollect and gather our thoughts and figure out what are we going to do. And we went remote. Everything is remote, is virtual, everything is online. We send our players workouts every single day. The players, to be quite frank, have been brilliant. Their interaction and engagement has been top class. I'm not surprised. And then about 10 days ago now, we're allowed to go back into small group training. So getting back on the pitch with very stringent medical protocols. We wear masks. I've never coached with a mask on before, but now we're out there for about 5 hours as coaches, going through multiple sessions because they're in small groups. So we're going through and we're rotating through all of the different players in our group, just to make sure we're getting exposure to all of them, working with all of them, and pushing to make sure that we're good to go and ready to go when the season starts, which we still don't know when it's going to start. There's days where you feel optimistic. There's days where you're concerned as to when it's going to start and if it's going to start. But we're using it as an opportunity to grow. I say that to our players. There are 2 things that they control during this time. One is their own personal fitness. And I think this goes for players across the globe and in every sport. Personal fitness. And then the other one is probably equally, if not more important this time, is their football IQ. It's very rare that a player gets extra time to focus on his own personal football IQ. We've challenged the players with individual assignments, or players like positional specific assignments, but then also on team tactical assignments too. We've done them online. We've had communication through Zoom calls with different units. I've exposed the players to guest speakers, people that I either played with or have coached with or coached against, and brought them in and come have open and frank conversations like this with the guys. So I feel like our group has really grown. I think everybody is chomping at the bit to get back and play. Whether we play in the stadiums in front of fans or with no fans, that's yet to be determined. But we're going through this and we're using it in a positive manner. But we definitely are waiting to get back and get going as soon as we can.
Thanks, Alan. And I just love your positivity. I think that's, and I'm sure your players and your coaching staff feed off that too. And you know, a lot of what's been said here from a school's perspective is, as long as when our boys return, they're positive and motivated, that's the main thing, and everything else will fall into place. So yeah, thank you. It's just so nice to hear your positivity on that side of the world. So thank you for that.
No, you have to try to stay positive, even in challenging moments. And it's I'd be lying if I said I don't have tough moments. We all have tough moments. We're all human beings, irrespective of in sports or in business or just in general life. We all have difficult moments. There's no point of hiding from those. But we have to try to stay positive, because that's going to allow us to be ready to go for whenever the challenge presents itself.
No, for sure, 100%. Thanks, Alan. So a large part of these webinars that is obviously leadership and to try and grow leaders, you know, in the world. And obviously you're a phenomenal leader yourself with all you're having to be a leader of your teams, of your coaching staff, of your players. And I'm sure this could be endless. I mean, a leader of yourself and et cetera, et cetera. So can you give us some insights into your coaching style, particularly reference to your leadership style? How do you create a culture? I mean, I think that's massive, obviously, for coaches, is getting the right culture, the balance for your teams that you've coached, so that you can get the best out of your players.
Yeah, you know, culture is a word that we use a lot in sports, and it's used a lot in leadership and a lot in business. And I think it's such a huge part of what we're all trying to achieve. To achieve positive outcomes, you need to create the right environment. And there's so many different ways that you can do it. But in a sports perspective, I think it's that human connection. I think that's absolutely vital. We create that right in the recruitment phase when we're recruiting players to come play for us. Then it's about how do we integrate them into our club model, into a new city or into a new country. We have players that come from all over the world to come play for us. And you set that tone through the recruitment phase and then the integration phase. And then when we start training with them, it's about creating the best possible daily training environment. And I've been in different places. I've been in environments where we've had all the resources under the rainbow. We've had the ability to fly players in on private jets, which not every place has that ability. And I've been in different places where I personally had to get in a car and go drive to the airport and pick up a player. And I'm more than willing to do that, because at the end of the day, our team success is based on individual success. And a couple of things I've done. I created a leadership forum within our team a few years ago. I've done it now at the last few stops that I've been in. I try to take players from different backgrounds within the team. It could be an older player, it could be younger players, it could be players that are coming from different places, different countries, different walks of life, different ethnicities, making sure that we're able to reach out to the entire team. And I use normally a small group of between 5 to 8 players in that leadership forum. And they are my point person for a bigger group within the team. We normally get together once a month, but they're open to come speak to me whenever they'd like. That goes for every single player. And then we use that group to address challenges that we're having. And I ask the players to be open and frank, and we create a safe environment for them to come in. There's no... we don't judge anybody for anything that they come in with. We talk openly and honestly, and sometimes they may bring something to my attention that might be uncomfortable for me, but I want to hear about it, so then we can address it together to go find positive solutions. And most of the stuff that we discuss in the leadership forum, really very little of it has to do with the on-field product. Most of it has to do with the off-field product. And it's about setting the players up for success. And it could be little things like dietary-based requirements. It could be certain players require different food to others. And one thing I've had to deal with as a coach, and we've just finished it now, is going through different religious holidays. Different players, Ramadan is a great example. We have players that go through that. And you cannot expect a player just to operate normally when he's going through something that impacts his body, like a religious festival. So we have to be cognizant of different situations like that present themselves to our players. And I think the leadership forum has brought a lot to my attention that sometimes I'm not even aware of. And we talk openly and honestly with the players. And if we can, we go find positive solutions to all of those challenges that present themselves.
No, thanks, Alan. I like your leadership forum. I think that's a brilliant idea, and it shows a lot of empathy, I think, towards all the players, particularly. Let's just say, if I can just pick your brain here from your experiences, let's say you create this culture and you've got your leadership forums, but you have a player in your particular team that maybe is not fitting well in terms of maybe he's got a toxic attitude, maybe he's working against what the goal or the vision of your team is. How do you deal with that kind of player or players in your structure that you're trying to achieve?
It's very, very difficult. And players at the end of the day in professional sports and in professional football is they only have one career. So sometimes players have to be selfish, and I completely understand it. I was a professional player for a few years, and yes, you hear and you're told to put the team first, put the team first, put the team first, but at what cost? So we have to find the right balance between, obviously there's an individual focus and there's a team focus. And sometimes you have players that are distraught, they're disappointed, and that manifests itself in a negative manner. And I think just open, honest communication is the best form of dealing with challenges. And players may not like to hear it. And I always tell them, I said, you may not like what I'm telling you, but at least you know I'm speaking from the heart and I'm telling you exactly where you stand. There's no gray area. If you're playing and you're in our starting 11, you know why. If you're not in our starting 11, you also know why. And then we can delve into the different layers below that. And if it's playing based, we'll tell them this is what you need to work on to get yourself into the starting 11. And if a player is having a negative experience for something off the pitch, well, then can we go help? I have a player here in my group right now that's really struggling. And I think there's lots of players that are struggling through this pandemic, but he's personally struggling a lot. And by having open and honest communication and talking to them and knowing that they can use you to talk about good things and bad things, I think that can allow you and that player to work together to hopefully get through some difficult moments. Because difficult moments do present themselves in this business. It's a very, very challenging business where people and players feel a lot of pressure, and pressure sometimes brings out the best of people, but sometimes it also brings out the worst of people. And as a coach, yeah, it's great when I had a player a few years ago score 4 goals in a game. We won 4-0. And he literally was in the middle of the field with his arms up, and he did a 360-degree in front of the stadium. And the guy was a rock star. It was amazing to see him, and I was personally incredibly proud and satisfied for him, and I went through that experience with him. It was his moment, and we all enjoyed it. But I've also seen players and had players go through negative experiences. And you cannot just turn your back on them and walk away from them at that time. You have to be there to go head on and embrace it and go fight that challenge together. And I think that's one thing I've really figured out through this journey, that you need to be there for your players as people through good and bad. And it's not always easy. I've got players that I've been through some difficult moments with, and I'm still in touch with some of those guys to this day, because there's a lot of challenges that present themselves in this game.
Thanks, Alan. It's just so overwhelming to hear you speak like that, even at your level, at professional level, that there are coaches like you that still, it's empathy, it's speaking to the hearts of the players, getting the best out of people. And when they feel appreciated and they feel like you've got their back, you're going to get the best out of them on the field. So it's just overwhelming to hear that even at a professional level in the United States, that this is happening. So thank you. I mean, on behalf of everybody, thank you. That's really
no. But you know, different coaches do it in different ways. Like, it's, as a head coach or a manager, I'm a little bit more hands-on with a lot of those things. Some other people will use their assistant coaches to do it for them. And there's no right or wrong method. It's what works best for you personally and in that environment. But I prefer to be hands-on. At the end of the day, I'm the decision maker. So I don't I don't transfer any of that responsibility to my assistant coaches. If I'm making a decision about who's playing and who's not playing, it's my decision. I don't want you to be upset with the assistant coaches. They're there to help create the environment. And I don't want them to go have that conversation, because then they may be associated with that decision. I've made the decision, so let me bear the responsibility. And if you don't like it, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out.
Great, thanks, Alan. Just to say, I mean, you've spoken about other coaches there. You know, how you've been fortunate enough to be involved in South Africa. You've been overseas in Germany, Ireland, and a few other countries that you've mentioned. You know, how does the sporting environment and leadership styles differ from South Africa to the United States, where you're currently now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because everywhere you go, it's different. And even everywhere where you go within a country is also different, because there is no environment that is exactly the same. I think the biggest differences, and this is not a big difference, but it's a little one, and it's somewhat, I mentioned it somewhat in jest, as I mentioned before we came online, is you look at my surname. In South Africa, I grew up as Alan Koch. Well, here I'm Alan Koch. And it's, I was introduced as Coach Cook when I coached in Texas, because they say my surname in a different way in every place. And I haven't been bothered, to be honest, to say, hey, this is how I said it growing up, and this is how I prefer to say it, because you can call me whatever you want. It doesn't make any difference to me. And I've just had to evolve and adjust in all the different environments. And that's a part of coaching. I think that's a part of growing as a person and as a coach. But in South Africa, I feel very, very fortunate that I was exposed, and then lots of South Africans are exposed to multiple sports. I played cricket, I played rugby, I played football, I did track and field, played tennis. It's particularly in Durban, we're lucky with the weather, where we're able to go outside and get to the beach and bodyboarded and surfed and all of those type of sports. And I think diversity, I think, is something that you can use a lot when you specialize. And the US is very similar to South Africa from that perspective. It's different sports here. It's baseball, basketball, American football, ice hockey. But if you take a little bit from all those different sports and put it together, it makes it a lot easier. But to answer your initial question, what's different? To be honest, yes, there are differences, definitely. And you have to adjust to all the different places. But at the end of the day, you're doing the same job. Whether I do this job speaking English or speaking other languages, whether I do it in one country with one group of people or one nationality, or a different place with multiple nationalities and multiple differences, at the end of the day, it's about the individuals within the group. I just focus on the individuals, and that allows you to set the individuals within the group up for success. Yeah, there's distinct differences. The sports that are popular here in the US are very different to the sports that are popular in South Africa. But our sport is truly a global sport. It's appreciated everywhere. And maybe it's a little bit easier to make a transition between different countries, just because the sport it's so global in nature. Everybody is aware of all the different things that are happening in every different country.
If I could just elaborate, I think you brought up a very interesting point there. You mentioned in South Africa all the different sports that you're involved in, and obviously you're working with professional soccer players now. When growing up in high school, how important is it for a young athlete to get involved as many sports as possible before specializing in a particular way forward?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if it's discussed in South Africa as much from a developmental perspective. It might be, because you raise a very valid question. But here, people ask that all the time. It's like, when do you specialize? When do you specialize? And I'm biased because of my own experiences. I did cross country. I did track and field. Like I mentioned, I played all those sports. But by the time I was 16, it was very clear that football or soccer was it. That was my sport. It's what I would focus on, and it's what I needed to specialize in. Even though I did it all the way through until matric, I did all the other sports. But I was by the time I was 16, it was my specialty. I was playing youth football already for Westville. I think we were called Westville Old Boys, the sports club at that time. And then I was playing for the first team too at the same time already. And then by the time I was 17 and when I matriculated, I'd signed professionally. So I kind of specialized at a relatively young age. But you look at players that I've coached now, since being a professional coach, Alphonso Davies, who plays for Bayern Munich. I gave him his professional debut with the Vancouver Whitecaps in the USL when he was 15 years old. And Alphonso is a unique talent. He's one of the best players in the Bundesliga, and he's 19 years old now. But it was very, very clear to everybody that the sport was his specialty. He left his family in Edmonton in Canada to come join us in Vancouver. And when you make a move like that, you're not going to another city and joining a professional club to play multiple sports. So it can be individual based. There's people that have his experience that really specialize and go pro at a very young age. But I've also coached other players that have gone pro a little bit older and have done different experiences and gone a different pathways. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. I think a lot of people will give you a certain answer based on their own personal agenda, to be quite frank. I don't have an agenda with it. I speak from my own experiences. I enjoyed playing all the other sports, and it allowed me to acquire a different skill set. But everybody takes their own path.
No, thanks, Alan, for your perspective. I think you're right. It is a big debate here in South Africa. Often parents are pushing maybe their son or daughter a particular way, and maybe a young athlete at grade 6, grade 7, 13, 14 years old trying to specialize in one particular sport. So yes, thank you for giving your perspective. And yeah, it's very interesting. Thank you. And it's nice that you have a broad vision on it. I think that's good, because you're right. A lot of people give their input on their perspective in their what they've been through in their lives. So thank you for that, Alan.
Yeah, no, I think we're all influenced by our own experiences, obviously. But then you'll hear different people, and you have to read between the lines in terms of what people are saying and why they're saying it. But like I said earlier, I think it's different pathways for different people, and what may work for you may not work for me, and vice versa. No,
perfectly said. Thank you. Alan, what advice can you give a young inspiring player or coach who's sitting here now listening to this and sees you leaving Westville Boys High School and now living maybe the goals and the dreams that many people here sitting and watching this may have? What advice can you give them, to a player, to a coach abroad, who can become a success in the venture that you've successfully done?
I can give 2 examples from my journey. Is the backfield at Westville Boys High, is it still called Commons Field?
Yes, correct. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So if you're a player, go play and train as much as you can in as many environments as possible. And yeah, I played for, I think we were called, when I was growing up, Westville Football Club, and then it became Westville Old Boys. And I enjoyed playing there, and I had some very good coaches who were parents of players that I played with, and I enjoyed being in that somewhat structured environment. But I really, really learned by playing informally and going to Commons on the weekend with a couple of my friends that went to Westville Boys High with me, and we played football with the Westville hotel staff. There were people from the kitchen, there were waiters, everybody in the rainbow that worked there. And I don't remember the exact time, but it was on a Sunday, and there was a certain time where everybody got off, and we just went down to Commons, and a very eclectic group of people came together, and we just played. And I felt like I really grew and learned a lot from that very informal environment. So from a playing perspective, play as much as you can in as many environments as possible. And even if you look during this COVID-19, you can still get better as a player. Go grab a ball, go grab a tennis ball, whatever it is, and juggle, or do what used to drive my parents crazy when I was a kid, and just knocking a ball against the wall all day long, focusing on my touch. So play. But my advice for a coach is almost the same. If you want to become a professional coach, go out and coach. And everybody tells you, I've been asked this question so many times, and people think it's easy, but you know what? At the end of the day, it boils down to putting yourself out there. And the best way to do it as a young coach is go coach sessions. Go coach as many sessions as possible, and go coach U10 kids, boys, girls. It doesn't make any difference. And go put yourself in as many environments as possible and deal with what happens. I remember coaching young kids, and you get told, oh, you're going to have 14 players at training. before you know it, you've got 8, and 2 of them don't even want to be there. So how do you adjust? And I'm a planner. I've always been a planner. I've always been proactive. How do you adjust and on the fly to make sure you actually make that a productive training session? I learned an immense amount of things from that type of training sessions. And then just go out and coach wherever you can. Volunteer, be an assistant, learn, be around people. Go find a mentor if you can. Mentors are fantastic. There are people that can help guide you, and you can learn from their experiences. There's nothing wrong in this game with stealing ideas from other people. If somebody's been through something, take it. You don't have to go make the same mistake. And I felt like I really learned the most as a coach by doing that, and just exposing myself to different situations. People thought I was crazy. 4 years ago, I left a Major League Soccer team, the Vancouver Whitecaps, and I was the reserve team coach. I was a scout for the Major League Soccer team, and I was working very, very closely with the first team. And I was in a comfortable environment. We're a good club, good stadium. Vancouver has become our home now. It's where we still have our house. And I said I wanted a bigger challenge, and I left to go to FC Cincinnati, who were in the USL, which is the second tier. And people were like, well, why would you leave a first tier club to go to a second tier club? I could see growth opportunities in that club, and I could see the club itself was actually growing and going in the right direction. And you kind of had a very good idea, no guarantees that it was going to become a Major League Soccer club. Well, I took that opportunity to go wear more hats than I've ever worn in my entire life. I wore every single hat at that club. They fired, unfortunately, the manager, John Hawkes, in preseason, and literally didn't even ask me if I wanted the job, just said, you're the head coach. And like that, I had to just jump into the job, embrace it, try galvanize a group, and bring them together. And I feel very fortunate that I was there for that opportunity. And then I just took it, and I had to go with it. And we galvanized a city, we galvanized a fan base. We grew the club to playing routinely in front of 30,000 fans, and managed here to earn the club. Essentially what the rest of the world would say is promotion. There's no promotion relegation in North American sports, but the club was awarded a Major League Soccer bid. And then I went with the club and became a head coach of a Major League Soccer club.
No, fantastic. Alan, I just really, if I can speak from a personal point of view, I've taken so much out of this, and I really, again, appreciate you giving up your time and being so open about it. And you mentioned it now that get out there and coach and you learn from each other. And really, I think so many people can take so much out of this. And again, leadership's a lot about courage. And you mentioned that straight away, from going from a first tier to a second tier team and getting the success. And I'm sure getting out of your comfort zone there wasn't easy, but it's reaped its benefits. And just for reaching your goal, for having a dream, and for allowing other people to listen to your story, to grow and understand it. I honestly appreciate it. Again, I've learned so much from you. I've taken so much from this, and I'm sure a lot of people will do it. So, Alan, I really thank you. And I'm humbled to actually even be able to speak to a man of your caliber on this sort of webinar.
No, you're absolutely welcome, Gavin. You mentioned the word courage, and I know this is just brainstorming behind me, but I don't know if you can see it in orange. It says courage. And courage is a big part of this journey. You have to have courage. And I have friends and acquaintances around the world that are in this game, and they always ask, like, what can you do? And you have to have courage. You have to have courage as a player, as a coach, no matter what your role is within it. But you also have to be willing to take what I call calculated gambles. There's obviously major risk involved in this business, and major sacrifice. But if you find the right calculated gamble, go for it. Jump in with both feet, and make the most of it. And you're going to get punched in the face. There's moments in this business where you will get punched in the face. But how do you respond to those moments obviously defines us. And no, I appreciate the opportunity. It's always awesome to speak to people back home, and obviously having the Westall Boys connection is pretty special and very dear to my heart.
Thank you, Alan. And we wish you all the best for your future career, and hopefully one day see you at Westall, and we can maybe get you there and you can speak to us and then share some more insights.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.